there. Today, we're going to be talking about systems theory in action, and I have a couple things that I found interesting from the book Systems in Action, by Shelly Smith-Acuna, um, and Acuna, um, and yeah, I'm gonna break down a couple of things in this video. So for me, I thought it was really important to start with a definition of the systems theory. Um, so it's pretty much a framework that views complex entities, like individuals, families, organizations, and communities, as systems made up of interconnected parts. Like in social services, it helps professionals understand how different aspects of clients' life are linked, like childhood trauma, socioeconomic, community, and just everything in the background of their client. Um, And so, with that, I wanted to go right into the key terms that I found very helpful and interesting to me in this book and with the research that I've been doing on the side for systems theory. Um, so, with a system, it's a collection of irrelated parts that function as a whole. And for me, like that example is like how you know you have a car and you need your tires done, or you need your brakes done, or you need your engine replaced, or whatever, even an oil change, how they're very different parts of the car, but they need function to they need to be fixed so that as a whole the car can function. um and yeah, I thought that was an interesting way to, I don't know, understand system better. And then within the system there's subsystems. So it's the smaller parts within the larger system. So like family, peer groups, things like that. Um and then I was able to see positive feedbacks. It promotes change, it promotes growth, and negative feedbacks, which resist those changes and resist to maintain stability, unlike positive feedback. And then I have I'm probably gonna say this wrong, but multi-finality. It's like starting at the same point but getting different results. And for the example that I um, saw online with my other research was say two kids grew up with the same trauma. I honestly, I did not know that there was a word for this. I thought this was just something that happened because I personally, I grew up in a very, I don't know, I feel like toxic and traumatic childhood, and my sister was right alongside me. The way that our brains worked, she was able to get through, and she was able to move out, go to school at some point, and then, have a somewhat functioning life. Although there was problems and things that came up from her childhood in those relationships in life, um, she still seemed functional in society. But for me, um, I did not turn out that way. I ended up falling into drugs and, getting in a really toxic relationship, having kids, and then, losing my kids and getting them back. And so, like, I definitely am grateful that I learned that there is an actual word for this. Um, but yeah, now here I am trying to get back on the right track, back in school, sober, um, doing all the things that we're supposed to do as adults. So yeah, I definitely am grateful to be able to figure out other things about myself in this research. Um, and so Some other things that I was able to see is holistic assignment, or assessment, sorry. Excuse me, I'm really nervous. So with social workers, they're able to look at more than just the individual. They assess the family, environment, community, all of societal influences, whether it's on the internet, it's on the streets, it's in their neighborhood, it's, anywhere, schools, and then family systems. So, like, say a kid is in foster care, or is a troubled kid at school. The therapist doesn't see it as, oh, this kid is a bad kid. It's more of, they're not trying to be problematic. There's obviously something else going on within this kid's life. And so they look at different aspects of that kid's life, and um, you know, they try to help with that, with those subsystems. They try to help with, is the background, what's the background like, what's trauma like, and work from there to help, children figure out what is going on. Um, all right, and then with interventions, um, effective intervention is to engage multiple levels, like, you know, individuals, families, community. And so with that, like, for an example, say someone is houseless, and um they have their kids, or they're trying to get their kids back, what can social services or a therapist or someone that's helping them, um, what can they do to help this individual out and getting to their end goal, such as having a housing program with children, or a detox program where there's people on site that are able to, help this parent out with, not only their sobriety, but being engaged with their children and staying engaged so they're not losing that connectiveness with their child. Um, and that can, I feel like, can go with, you know, with anything, especially like when it comes to probation officers, when it comes to educators, counselors at school, or even counselors out and about, like, being able to have effective interventions for clients is just ideal. um, all right. And then for the benefits, I felt like um the benefits of systems theory is not blaming any individual for any of the problems that are going on in their life, but figuring out where a therapist can start. I feel like ultimately you want to start with what was in the beginning bothering this person, because they ended up the way that they are. A lot of the times, with trauma, people turn out a certain way, and I think, with systems theory, finding out what really triggered them to turn out a certain way, whether it was trauma within the family, trauma at school, trauma, anywhere. I feel like, you know, within their community, if there is a therapist or probation or courts or any type of, therapy that can, um, just help bring, everything together and to the forefront, to where, um, you know, they're able to bring that all together, and just help the individual heal, and find other ways to manage their life. I think that that is a huge, huge benefit to the systems theory. and it's very client centered. Like it's something that, you know, ultimately you want the client to do better, and being able to find out what's really hurting them and harming them mentally or um oh sorry. Okay, sorry, my cat just jumped. uh but being able to do that, I feel like um is a huge benefit, and letting the clients know this is about you and how do we help you, I think is a huge benefit. But of course there are negatives of, like, again, just talking about earlier, how there's negative feedback and like resistance towards um systems theory and treatment, and trying to, navigate around that and trying to help the person see that like there could be a positive outcome if you work with the system. you know um I think that that is probably ultimately like the biggest negative thing about systems theory, is trying to have the client understand that this is for the best for them, and this is what will help them get through whatever struggles they're dealing with. But yeah, that was pretty much everything that I have gathered together from the readings and from other online sources. I thought that Systems Theory in Action was a really cool book, just because just seeing that there is more behind therapist, and knowing that like they are human and they're going to think it's one thing but it could actually be another, but like following um different steps in the system theory and action, I think you know was really it was just really nice to see that there are steps that could be taken. And even with family, like Vincent and Maurice, and there was another one with the parents that were divorced, and the dad was having some troubles just because the daughter wasn't talking to him, and he thought that it was disrespectful. He didn't like that, but like the daughter wasn't doing it, I don't think, out of complete anger for the dad. It was more she was trying to protect the mom, and like of course there's going to be upsetness, but like the parents were able to go to therapy and get the help that they needed, with not just like the daughter's grades dropping because of the divorce, but her not being able to talk to her dad. It helped them co-parent in a better way. It helped the family with togetherness, although the brother did end up shoplifting. I think there was definitely other things that the dad could have done, and possibly the mom. Yeah, 100%, like the mom too. I feel like it's just nice to know that there are systems in place that can help families and or just individuals try to figure out their stuff, just because like even with that family and the divorce, like of course things are going to come out of it, that could negatively affect different parts of the family, not just the parents. And there's a way to work through it to where you're more connected than you were. And it just helps with, feelings and emotions towards other people, and seeing things for how they are. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you.